The abyss beckons. The ocean stretched endlessly, a vast expanse of shimmering blue under the fading light of dusk. Waves lapped gently against the hull of the Abyssal Explorer, a state-of-the-art research submarine poised on the edge of the unknown. Inside, a team of 4 scientists prepared for their descent into the abyss, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of control panels. Dr. Elena Marquez, the team's leader and a seasoned marine biologist, adjusted her headset and glanced at her colleagues. Beside her sat Dr. Raj Patel, a brilliant but cautious engineer, whose fingers danced over the navigation console. Across the cramped cabin, Dr. Mei Lin, a young and ambitious oceanographer, double-checked the sonar equipment, while Captain Jack Harper, a grizzled ex-Navy officer, monitored the vessel systems with a practiced eye. "All systems green," Raj announced, his voice steady but laced with anticipation. "We're ready to dive." Elena nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the weight of their mission. "Let's make history," she said, her tone firm yet tinged with excitement. The Abyssal Explorer began its descent, the surface light fading as the submarine plunged into the inky depths. The first 1,000 meters passed in relative silence, the team exchanging occasional remarks about the readings on their screens. The ocean outside was a void, punctuated only by the occasional flicker of bioluminescent creatures. May leaned closer to the viewport, her breath fogging the glass. "It's incredible," she murmured. "Every time, it feels like we're entering another world." Jack chuckled, his deep voice filling the cabin. "Another world, maybe. But don't forget, this one doesn't exactly roll out the welcome mat." As they descended further, the atmosphere grew heavier, both literally and figuratively. The pressure outside was immense, and the submarine's hull creaked ominously. Raj's brow furrowed as he monitored the structural integrity. "We're approaching the limit of our previous dives," he said. "Everything's holding, but we're in uncharted territory now." Elena's gaze remained fixed on the sonar screen, where a faint blip had just appeared. "Do you see that?" she asked, pointing to the anomaly. May adjusted the sonar settings, her fingers moving swiftly. "It's faint, but it's there. Could be a thermal vent or something else." The team fell silent, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. The blip grew stronger, and the submarine's lights flickered briefly, casting eerie shadows across the cabin. Jack tightened his grip on the controls. "Stay sharp," he said, his voice low. "We're not alone down here." Suddenly, a deep, resonant sound echoed through the water, vibrating the hull. The team exchanged uneasy glances. "That's not a thermal vent," Raj said, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena's heart raced as the sonar screen lit up with a massive shape moving toward them. "Whatever it is, it's big," she said, her voice calm but edged with tension. The submarine's exterior lights flickered again, and for a moment, the darkness outside was illuminated by a pair of glowing, otherworldly eyes. The creature, a colossal, bioluminescent leviathan, passed silently by the viewport, its massive form disappearing into the abyss as quickly as it had appeared. The cabin was silent, the team frozen in awe and fear. May was the first to speak, her voice trembling. "Did that just—" "Yeah," Jack interrupted, his usual bravado replaced by a rare solemnity. "And I've got a feeling it's not the last we'll see of it." Elena took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We need to document this," she said, her voice firm. "But we also need to be careful. We're intruders here." As the Abyssal Explorer continued its descent, the team's excitement was tempered by a growing sense of unease. The deep sea had revealed its first secret, but the mystery had only deepened. The abyss beckoned, and the team knew there was no turning back. The final line of the section lingered in the air, unspoken but felt by all. Asterisk in the deep, darkness is not empty, it watches. The encounter. The Abyssal Explorer hung motionless in the black void, its lights piercing the darkness like fragile threads. Inside the cabin, the team sat in stunned silence, their breaths shallow, their eyes fixed on the sonar screen where the massive blip had vanished. Dr. Elena Marquez broke the silence, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "May, adjust the sonar range. Raj, double-check the hull integrity. Jack, keep us steady. We need to be ready for anything." The team sprang into action, their movements precise but hurried. May's fingers flew over the controls, expanding the sonar's reach. "I'm picking up movement," she said, her voice tight. "It's circling us. Slowly, but Deliberately. Raj's eyes darted across the structural readouts. Hull's holding, but the pressure's increasing. We're at 4,000 meters, deeper than we've ever gone. Jack gripped the controls, his knuckles white. If that thing decides to get friendly, we're sitting ducks. Suggestions, Doc. Elena's mind raced. We stay calm. We observe. This is what we came for, to study the unknown. But if it turns hostile, we retreat. Understood. The team nodded, their faces pale but determined. Outside, the water seemed to pulse with an eerie rhythm, as if the ocean itself were alive. Suddenly, the submarine's lights flickered, and the creature reappeared, its bioluminescent glow illuminating the cabin. It was colossal, a leviathan of the deep, its body sleek and serpentine, covered in shimmering scales that reflected the submarine's light. Its eyes, glowing like twin suns, locked onto the viewport, and the team felt an inexplicable sense of being studied. May gasped, her voice barely a whisper. It's beautiful. Beautiful and dangerous, Jack muttered, his hand hovering over the emergency ascent controls. The creature circled the submarine, its movements fluid and deliberate. Elena leaned closer to the viewport, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. Look at its anatomy, she said, her voice tinged with awe. The bioluminescence, the musculature, it's unlike anything we've ever documented. Raj frowned, his engineer's mind analyzing the situation. It's not attacking. Maybe it's just curious. Or sizing us up, Jack countered. As if in response, the creature suddenly darted forward, its massive body brushing against the submarine. The hull groaned under the pressure, and the team was thrown off balance. Alarms blared as Raj shouted, "Hull integrity at 80%. Another hit like that, and we're in trouble." Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Jack, ease us away. Slowly. We don't want to provoke it." Jack nodded, his hands steady on the controls. The submarine began to move, but the creature matched its pace, staying close. May's voice trembled as she read the sonar. "It's not alone. There's another one, bigger, coming up fast." The team's hearts sank as a second creature emerged from the darkness, its size dwarfing the first. This one was more menacing, its body covered in jagged ridges and its eyes glowing a deep, ominous red. The first creature hesitated, its movements becoming erratic, as if unsure whether to flee or fight. Elena's mind raced. They're not working together. This is territorial. We're caught in the middle. The second creature let out a low, resonant growl that vibrated through the submarine, sending shivers down the team's spines. It charged at the first creature, its massive jaws snapping, and the two collided in a whirl of glowing scales and thrashing tails. The submarine was buffeted by the shockwaves, and Rod shouted, "Hull integrity at 60%. We can't take much more of this." Jack's voice was grim. "We need to get out of here. Now." Elena hesitated, torn between the scientific opportunity and the danger. "One more minute. We need to record this." The creatures continued their battle, their movements creating powerful currents that rocked the submarine. May's voice was frantic. "Elena, we're losing systems. The sonar's down, and the lights are failing." Elena finally relented. "Jack, take us up. Slowly. We don't want to draw their attention." The submarine began its ascent, the creatures still locked in combat below. The team watched in silence as the glowing forms grew smaller, their battle fading into the darkness. As the Abyssal Explorer rose toward safer depths, the cabin was filled with a mix of relief and lingering fear. Elena's voice broke the silence. "We just witnessed something extraordinary, but we also saw how fragile we are down here." Jack's reply was somber. "And how little we understand." The final line of the section lingered, unspoken but felt by all. In the deep, survival is not a guarantee, it's a gamble. The struggle for survival. The Abyssal Explorer shuddered as it ascended, its systems groaning under the strain of the deep-sea pressure and the recent battering. Inside the cabin, the team worked frantically to stabilize the vessel, their movements sharp and urgent. Dr. Elena Marquez gripped the edge of the console, her knuckles white, as she monitored the sonar feed. "May, what's the status on the external cameras?" "We need eyes out there." May Lin's fingers flew across the controls, her face pale but focused. Cameras are down. The last hit fried the circuits. I'm trying to reroute power, but it's not looking good. Raj Patel, his voice tight with tension, called out from the engineering station. Hull integrity is at 50%. We've got minor leaks in compartments B and C. If we don't patch them soon, we're going to have bigger problems. Captain Jack Harper, his jaw clenched, kept his hands steady on the controls. We're at 3,000 meters and climbing. But if those things follow us, we're not out of the woods yet. Elena's mind raced, her scientific curiosity now overshadowed by the need to survive. We need a plan. We can't just hope they lose interest. Raj glanced up, his eyes narrowing. What if we use the sonar? A high-frequency pulse might disorient them, buy us some time. May shook her head. The sonar's barely functional. If we overload it, we could lose it completely. Jack interjected, his voice firm. We don't have a choice. If those things catch up to us, we're done for. Do it. Elena hesitated, weighing the risks. Do it, she finally agreed. But keep it short. We don't want to attract anything else. Raj initiated the pulse, and a sharp, high-pitched sound reverberated through the water. The team held their breath, waiting for a reaction. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the sonar screen lit up with movement. They're retreating, May exclaimed, her voice a mix of relief and disbelief. But the relief was short-lived. The submarine's lights flickered, and the hull groaned as if under immense pressure. Raj's voice was urgent. We've got a new problem. The pulse destabilized the hull. Integrity's down to 40%. We need to ascend faster, or we're not going to make it. Jack's hands tightened on the controls. Hang on. This is going to be rough. The submarine lurched upward, the pressure change causing the team to grip their seats. Outside, the water seemed to churn, as if the ocean itself were resisting their escape. Elena's voice cut through the tension. May, can you get anything on the sonar? Are they still following us? May shook her head, frustration etched on her face. The sonar's completely down. We're blind. Raj's voice was grim. We've got another leak. This one's in the engine compartment. If we don't seal it, we're going to lose power. Elena made a split-second decision. Jack, keep us steady. Raj, come with me. We need to patch that leak. The two moved quickly through the narrow passageway, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. The leak was worse than they'd feared. A steady stream of water was pouring in, threatening to short-circuit the engines. Raj grabbed a sealant kit, his hands trembling slightly as he worked to apply the patch. This is going to be close, he muttered. Back in the control room, May and Jack monitored the ascent. The depth gauge showed 2,000 meters, but the submarine was struggling. Jack's voice was low, almost to himself. Come on, old girl. Just a little further. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the submarine jerked violently. May's voice was panicked. We've lost power in the starboard thruster. We're listing to the side. Elena and Raj rushed back to the control room, their faces streaked with sweat. The patch is holding, but we're not out of the woods yet, Raj reported. Elena's voice was calm but commanding. Jack, adjust the ballast. We need to compensate for the thruster. Jack's hands moved swiftly, his experience as a pilot evident in his precise adjustments. The submarine stabilized, but the strain on the hull was evident in the creaks and groans that echoed through the cabin. As they approached 1,000 meters, the team allowed themselves a glimmer of hope. But the ocean was not done with them yet. A deep, resonant sound echoed through the water, and the sonar screen flickered to life briefly, showing a massive shape moving beneath them. May's voice was barely a whisper. It's back. Elena's jaw tightened. We're so close. Don't stop now. The submarine breached the surface with a violent lurch, the sudden change in pressure causing the team to gasp. The cabin was filled with the sound of alarms and the rush of water as the leaks worsened. But they had made it. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the sound of waves lapping against the hull. Then, Jack spoke, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We're not safe yet. But we're alive. The final line of the section lingered, unspoken but felt by all. Asterisk in the deep, hope is a fragile thing, easily shattered. The surface and beyond. The Abyssal Explorer bobbed on the surface of the ocean, its battered hull groaning under the strain of the journey. Inside the cabin, the team sat in stunned silence, their faces pale and drawn, their breaths shallow. The adrenaline that had carried them through the ordeal was fading, leaving behind a heavy exhaustion. Dr. Elena Marquez was the first to speak, her voice steady but tinged with disbelief. "We made it." Captain Jack Harper leaned back in his seat, his hands still gripping the controls as if he couldn't quite believe they were safe. "Barely," he muttered, his voice rough. "This old girl's seen better days." Raj Patel, his shirt damp with sweat, ran a hand through his hair and let out a shaky laugh. "I don't know whether to celebrate or pass out." Mei Lin, her hands trembling, stared at the blank sonar screen. Do you think it followed us?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. Elena's gaze drifted to the viewport, where the ocean stretched endlessly under the pale light of the moon. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we're not sticking around to find out." Jack nodded, his expression grim. "We need to get back to the research vessel. Now." The team worked quickly, their movements mechanical but efficient. Raj patched the remaining leaks as best he could, while May worked to restore power to the critical systems. Jack guided the submarine toward the distant lights of their support ship, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. Elena monitored the radio, her voice calm as she relayed their status to the crew above. As the Abyssal Explorer approached the research vessel, the team felt a flicker of relief. But the weight of what they had experienced lingered, a shadow that no amount of light could dispel. When the submarine was finally secured, the team emerged onto the deck, their faces drawn and their eyes haunted. The crew of the research vessel greeted them with a mix of relief and curiosity, but the team was in no mood to explain. Elena requested a private debriefing room, and the four of them gathered around a table, the events of the dive replaying in their minds. "What do we tell them?" May asked, her voice small. "Do we tell them everything?" Elena hesitated, her mind racing. "We tell them the truth," she said finally. "But we need to be careful. This changes everything. If word gets out, there'll be chaos. Governments, corporations, treasure hunters, they'll all want a piece of this." Raj leaned forward, his expression serious. "We have to protect the data. What we saw down there, it's not just a discovery. It's a responsibility." Jack nodded, his arms crossed over his chest. "Agreed. But we also need to figure out what we're dealing with. Those things, they're not just animals. They're intelligent. And they're territorial." The team fell silent, the weight of their responsibility settling over them. Elena's voice broke the silence, her tone resolute. "We'll analyze the data. We'll document everything. But we do it carefully. And we don't go back down there without a plan." As the meeting concluded, the team stepped back onto the deck, the cool night air a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness of the deep. The ocean stretched before them, vast and unknowable, its secrets still hidden beneath the waves. Elena stood at the railing, her eyes fixed on the horizon. May joined her, their shoulders brushing as they stared out at the water. "Do you think we'll ever understand it?" May asked softly. Elena shook her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I don't know. But I do know this. The ocean is full of wonders. And dangers. And we've only scratched the surface." The final line of the section lingered, unspoken but felt by all. In the deep, the line between discovery and danger is forever blurred.